Hey everybody, this is Perch, and the news that kind of went out today and is breaking is Marvel artist Joe Bennett, who's been working on the Immortal Hulk with Al Ewing, has basically more material has resurfaced. So to give you a kind of a bit of timeline around how all this went down, recently Marvel, and I say recently earlier this week, released a list of eight, sort of seven, depending on how you're counting them, new titles. And Joe Bennett was scheduled to work on one of them. Bennett has been a hot artist who kind of catapulted into fame with his body horror type depictions in the Immortal Hulk, working with Al Ewing. And when that happened, when that announcement came out, a number of people on Twitter began circulating the "I can't believe this company is letting this garbage person work on comics again. This is a slap in the face to many of us." Despite the fact, by the way, that you've got a writer, Nadia, who is doing something with Miss Marvel, who's written just blatant, outright anti-Semitic stuff, talking about her thoughts on Israel and Palestine. But we'll just leave that. We'll leave that aside. Anyway, so a number of people kind of came out and say, "I can't believe this person's getting work again." And it struck me at the time that a lot of people seem to be under the impression that when the anti-Semitism was first kind of surfaced, which was about a couple issues ago. This was Immortal Hulk number 43, which had some Jewish stereotype, anti-Semitic work inside that comic. And this controversy bubbled up at the time. Joe Bennett apologized, said that it was definitely, it was, not his intent. And just basically said, it was accidental, and he's very sorry for it, and not what he meant. And in Immortal Hulk number 43. And he expressed remorse. His exact words were, "It was wrong, offensive, and hurtful in many ways." And he claimed it was an honest but terrible mistake. And spoke to Marvel behind the scenes, and it seemed to be, it kind of went away at some point. But several months go by, and then when Bennett's name resurfaced on one of these new titles, a number of people got very angry again and brought all this back up again, brought Hulk number 43, and then ultimately found this new image. So this new image is, new old image. So apparently back in 2017, Joe Bennett drew what appears to be a political cartoon featuring Jair Bolsonaro, president of Brazil, decapitating political opposition. And the political opponents are rats, basically. They look like rats, and they're characterized with large noses, big teeth, and pointed ears. And one is a vampire, and Bolsonaro is in golden armor, a sword raised above his head, while he rides a white horse, similar to knights having been depicted. But it looks like it looks like a political cartoon with some very racist type caricatures included in it. And it's not a good. I mean, there's no way you look at this and go, it's accidental. No, it's clearly caricatures that play on racist stereotypes. Now, I'll say for the record, for what it's worth, and this is not by any means excusing Bennett or really weighing into this part of it. Political cartoons in general, if you're a political cartoonist, they typically utilize heavy use of caricatures. And I think there's a ton of political cartoonists that are going to be canceled over the next 5 years because of stuff they've done in the past. If you go back and you look at particularly a lot of the political cartoons from like the 70s and 80s with artists that are still working today for the New Yorker and other places, there's some full-blown stuff that is I mean, just you'd be hard not to call it racist. Like if that stuff starts resurfacing, we're going to be in for a long run of people getting fired. But anyway, so this is again 2017, and this is some kind of political cartoon. What it's for, I can't tell. It's not clear. So this, on top of then Immortal Hulk number 43, which had the Star of David underneath backward lettering that read Cronenberg Jewer, which was intended to be jewelry or whatever. All these things feel like they are definitely, it's a pattern he's going to have a hard time walking away from. So the question mark becomes: will Bennett still work on this title for Marvel? Will he work on one of these 8 books like he had been promised, or that Marvel was promoting? Seems a little bit unlikely now. I'll just say I think it's I think that's yeah, I think it's unlikely. I would again, these things are probably coming quickly. I think the issue he was scheduled to be on, as I recall, was this one shot, this Kang comic that was going to deal with kind of this timeline, this tentpole series. Timeless is what it was called. There you go. I think he was scheduled to be on that along with Kev Walker and Mark Bagley. Mark Bagley is a super fast artist. This is for December, but I'm betting they're redoing those pages. I'm guessing Joe Bennett's not going to be part of that book. We'll see. Kind of giving some more credibility to all this, Al Ewing weighed in today. Al Ewing being the writing partner, of course, of Joe Bennett for Immortal Hulk. And he basically had been pressured by several to make a statement. So he makes his statement. There's an image doing the rounds that Joe Bennett drew back in 2017. I won't link to it, but I have seen it. It's reprehensible. And he basically, gives this thread. And in the thread, he talks about, that this is wrong. And he basically says that he donates some money to a charity, kind of in by way of apology. And that he basically says he will not be working with Joe Bennett ever again. So he's done with working with him. Given that, I think it feels highly likely that Bennett is done at Marvel. I think when you have a writer, even though Al Ewing has a Substack, certainly, I think it's over for that's concerned. I think Marvel will cut ties with him. We'll see. But it feels highly likely that I have to imagine they're going to drop him from this book, and they're going to move on without him. So what does all this mean? I mean, in the grand context of things, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with someone. They were saying, why is it that some scandals in comics seem to kind of truck along for years, and nobody seems to get that upset about them, or I don't know. Nobody need the Warren Ellis stuff, for example, was this open secret people had talked about and communicated about for like a decade more. And then suddenly it's too far. With Joe Bennett's case, this is kind of an obscure cartoon that was dug up and found, but it does look bad. I mean, this is not the way to keep a job. It's to draw racist caricatures in cartoons. But this one happened relatively quickly. I do think there's some interesting timing here of everybody seemed to kind of, it really feels like people assumed they were, it feels like they were confident that Bennett was done. And then when Bennett got this nod to be on this Timeless book, everybody seemed like it took them by complete surprise. And that seemed to, I can't get that kind of out of my mind that if this was an issue, it should have been driven to a conclusion back in Immortal Hulk number 43. It just so happens that it's like, oh, we went ahead and finished this run with issue 50. We went ahead and got all the work out, and now he's going on to another project. Well, now let's bring out this other cartoon. I mean, this cartoon was floating around back months ago. Why now is it more of a problem? Is it because we kind of assumed he'd finish his run? I mean, I guess that's nice. We let him finish his run, but then we expected he was done, or, that's the part that feels, that feels bad. That feels wrong to me. I think if you're going to draw this kind of stuff, you're going to draw political cartoons, you're going to use racist caricatures, you're putting, you're asking for trouble. This is a self-inflicted wound. Some will say, it's not a big deal. What's the big deal? That's fine. But I mean, you're taking a risk if you do this, and you take the risk that, somebody's going to find this, somebody's going to be offended by it. It's not like you drew some just very random thing that then became a problem later. This isn't a cartoon from 1942. This is a comment from 4 years ago, a comic from 4 years ago. So I don't feel sorry for Bennett in that regard. But I also, the entire timeline here just feels like the industry is still broken. if we're willing to kind of say something and then it dies down, then, oh, he was given new work. Well, now we're pissed again. That's the part that bugs me. But what about you? Is this is the news? Again, we'll see. Marvel's made no statement. We don't know what's happening. I'm speculating that he'll be done at this point for Marvel, but we'll see. But let me know what you think of all this. Should he be done? Is an apology necessary? What do you think? What about, Ewing is, what do you think of his statement? He basically donated $2,000 to the Rainbow Railroad donation. What do you make of all this? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.